Aria, a homeless girl, secretly scribbles math answers on the school's glass window, breaking the rules just to help her friend Sophie. Caught red-handed by the strict principal, she faces the threat of being expelled. But everything shifts when a chalk-drawn fraction diagram on the playground stuns the entire crowd. Parents cheer, the principal falters, and a mysterious man steps forward to defend Arya. Can her truth break through the wall of rigid rules? Arya grips the old access card so tightly that sweat dampens its edge where it's jammed in the school gate. The worry from last night still lingers, but now she stands outside the iron fence, her eyes locked on the classroom through a fogged window. Afternoon sunlight filters through the leaves, scattering pale beams across the glass of the math room. Inside, the teacher scribbles hurried formulas on the board. 45 plus 28 and 3/4 plus 2/5. Giggles ripple when a student answers wrong, the projector flashing a crooked solution. Arya takes a deep breath, her heart pounding hollow and fast. A sharp ink smell drifts from a ballpoint pen abandoned near a planter. She grabs it without hesitation. The thin blue line shakes as it glides across the cold glass. The common denominator is 20, she writes, numbers glowing faintly through the misted pane. A camera light above the porch blinks once. A yellow oak leaf brushes the window frame, catching her reflection. Arya knows she stepped out of the shadows, though she never meant to. But silence now feels heavier than the pain in her chest. The night before, her mother Mira lay stiff on the concrete beneath the bridge. Trucks rumbled past, carrying the smell of damp earth and diesel smoke mixed with soggy newsprint. Arya leaned close, whispering a steady count from 1 to 10, the way a doctor once taught her. She patted her mother's shoulder until the trembling eased. A passerby frowned and muttered, "Move aside, don't block the way." The words pierced like a needle. Arya bit her lip, tugged the thin blanket tighter, her stomach twisting with hunger and shame. Then a thought flared. That glass window at school, where numbers never judged. She clutched an empty plastic bag, fingers stained with faint blue ink from the found pen, and hurried toward the gray-tiled roof hidden beyond the trees. As dawn broke, the smell of toasted bread from a roadside stand pulled her back from despair. Recess drifts across the yard like a slow stream. The classroom clock reads 10:32, 3 minutes behind the hallway bell. Tiny, but Arya notices. She presses close to the window, her back against the chill, and smooths a crumpled candy wrapper across her palm. From memory, she copies the problem. She brushes away another oak leaf stuck to the frame. 3/4 becomes 15/20. 2/5 becomes 8/20. Together, 23/20. The numbers line up neatly, drowning out the laughter inside. A pair of brown eyes follows the ink trail. They don't laugh. They glow like a spark rekindled. Arya's nose stings. She doesn't say her name. She just steps back, pen trembling in her hand like a spent match. The girl inside taps her desk 3 times, a habit that feels like a signal. Her cheeks puff, lips forming a silent word. "Thank you." Sunlight slants through the blinds, carrying the chalk's dust and the warm scent of wood desks onto Arya's face. A harsh adult voice cuts in. "Who wrote on the glass?" Chairs scrape loud enough to make everyone jump. Arya shrinks, slipping down by the window's edge, then darts to the backyard where an old oak leans against the tool shed. Its leaves tremble. One sticks in her hair. From behind the brick wall, the lecture drones on, but those brown eyes now hover over a notebook, pen trembling as if finding a path again. Arya presses her forehead to the tree. Its rough bark leaves a resin scent on her skin, and for the first time today, her heartbeat slows. The back door creaks open. The girl peeks out, clutching her notebook tight, scanning the yard. Arya stays half hidden in the oak's shadow, fingers smudged with ink, gripping the candy wrapper like a charm. Wind lifts bits of grass into her eyes, forcing her to blink fast. The girl points at the fogged glass and draws with her finger. 12:40? The question mark dangles uncertain, trembling like a strand of silk. Arya glances at the hallway clock. It still lags 3 minutes, then nods slightly. At the rear gate, a ring of keys clangs, the metal echoing across damp cement. The disinfectant smell from the nurse's office seeps out, cold and metallic. Arya counts her breaths, sweat soaking her palms, the pen slick and shiny against her grip. She edges along the fence, her shoes scuffing the wet asphalt. Inside her pocket, a faded clinic flyer rubs against her side, its pale ink promising help long gone. Her stomach growls. She pulls a dry scrap of bread from the plastic bag, breaks it in half by habit. One piece stays, the other crumbles on her tongue, salty with stale butter. At the window, the girl lifts a small lunchbox, hesitates, then lowers it again, an invitation caught in her throat. More oak leaves spin down, landing on the leftover bread in Arya's bag. Heavy footsteps draw closer. Arya presses the wrapper flat against the oak bark so it won't crumple, eyes fixed on the trembling door handle. It looks ready to burst open at any second. The side door creaks open, hinges whining, and Mr. Griggs's polished black shoes step onto the brick landing. Arya presses herself against the oak tree, sweaty palms gripping the candy wrapper until blue ink stains spread across her fingers like a spill of paint. Damp air drifts from the hallway, carrying the sharp mix of disinfectant and old paper, tightening her throat. Mr. Griggs scans the backyard, his gaze cold as steel, before locking on Sophie, who clutches her lunchbox to her chest. "Who's out there?" His voice drops heavy, pouring concrete over the quiet yard. Sophie takes a step back, her small shoulders trembling, while Arya's cheek presses hard against the bark, ridges carving into her skin. Mr. Griggs's shoes strike a steady rhythm, his shadow stretching long, blotting out the noon light through the oak leaves. Sophie takes a deep breath, sets her lunchbox on the sill, and walks forward on shaking legs. "I just needed some fresh air," she says, voice thin but steady. He narrows his eyes, glances at the box, then shifts toward the pile of dry oak leaves stacked in the corner. Arya feels that stare slice through the tree trunk, peeling away every dark hiding place. A gust of wind tears Sophie's graded test from her hand. It spins down, landing at Arya's feet. She crouches, fingers trembling as they brush the page, the red ink still sharp with fresh scent. Her heartbeat hammers. If she steps out, she's exposed. If she stays, the grass marks will betray her. She grips the paper tighter, the red ink clinging to her skin like a warning. "Back to class, young lady," Mr. Griggs growls. He snatches the lunchbox, flips it open as if searching for proof of guilt. The smell of rice and smoked meat rises warm and rich, stabbing Arya's empty stomach. Sophie flushes, stammers. "It's mine. My mom made it." He smirks, snaps the lid shut, and thrusts it back at her like a warning shot. His eyes linger, sliding toward the trembling oak leaves as though they conceal a secret. Arya shoves the test into her pocket, sweat mixing with blue ink and salt on her skin. His shoes strike the cement like hammers as he turns away, leaving behind disinfectant's harsh shadow. The door slams. Light floods back. Sophie exhales hard, but her eyes stay clouded, unsettled. She sits on the grass, back against the wall, lunchbox on her lap. Arya peeks from the oak's shadow, ink-stained hands shaking, then steps closer. Sophie opens the box and slides half a sandwich across the grass. The buttery scent drifts up, sesame seeds scattered across white paper. Arya takes a bite, rich flavor melting on her tongue, then nudges the other half back toward Sophie. Their eyes meet, no glass between them this time, only closeness. Sunlight glints on Sophie's hair, gold and bright, but in her gaze flickers a tired, faded light. "Can you solve this?" she asks, holding out her notebook, finger on a tangled fraction. Arya sits, pulls a broken cookie from her pocket, snaps it into even bits, laying them out as common denominators. Crumbs scatter over the grass, glittering in the sun. Sophie's eyes shine, her lips curve into a weak but honest smile. The hum of the classroom air unit drowns the wild beating of both hearts. Sophie taps her pen 3 times against her knee, the same rhythm she once tapped on her desk. A small signal Arya catches, like finding a key. When the last fraction is simplified, Sophie laughs softly, the sound fragile as wind chimes in the yard. But the moment doesn't last. Mr. Griggs's shoes thunder again, this time faster, heavier, as if he knows what he's missed. Sophie snaps her notebook shut, panic flashing. Arya tucks the graded paper behind the tree, red ink smearing her shirt. The radio crackles from a distance. Suspicious activity behind the storage shed. Arya's chest tightens, palms soaked. Sweat trickles down her fingers. A sharp gust knocks Sophie's paperclip into the grass. It glints in the sun, impossible to hide. Both girls stare, breath quickening. Mr. Griggs's shadow looms, blocking the light. He bends down, hand reaching toward the tiny silver clip. The air hangs tight. Even the hum of the air unit dies. Silence stretches, taut as a string. Sophie's mouth opens, but the words catch, stuck deep in her throat. Mr. Griggs's shadow swallows the ground as his hand snatches the gleaming paperclip from the grass, turning it in the sunlight like a piece of evidence. "Whose is this?" His voice is dry, metallic, like iron striking stone. Sophie freezes, her hands clutching her shirt until her knuckles pale. Arya feels the blue ink on her fingers grow damp again, the smell of it mixing with crushed grass beneath his shoes. He bends closer, eyes drifting from Sophie's lunchbox to the crumbs scattered on the ground, then stopping where Arya stands, half exposed from behind the oak. There's nowhere left to hide. Her breath catches, icy as a winter draft cutting through bare branches, scraping deep into her chest. "No outsiders allowed here," Mr. Griggs bellows, his voice echoing across the empty yard. A classroom window cracks open. Curious faces lean out. Whispering rises like a swarm of bees. Sophie bolts upright, stepping in front of Arya, her hand trembling as she lifts it. "I invited her," she says. The words sound fragile, yet they ripple out like a stone on water. Mr. Griggs narrows his eyes, thick brows knitting as if to crush her defense. Sunlight glances off Arya's ink-stained hand, the evidence burning bright against her skin. He steps closer, his polished shoes carrying the smell of leather that drowns out the grass. With a sharp tug, he rips the crumpled candy wrapper from Arya's grip. Faded math formulas sprawl across it, smudged and shaky. The torn edge flaps ragged, like a wound that won't close. Arya's heart twists. "Who wrote this garbage?" His voice booms, heavy with anger. From the classroom, a mocking laugh rings out. "Trash like her thinks she belongs here?" The laughter spreads fast, fire racing over oil. Arya's cheeks burn. Her eyes lock on the paper, hands trembling as if to snatch it back. Sophie grips her lunchbox so tightly the sandwich inside is crushed, butter seeping through the wrapper. It smells sharp in the air. Arya draws a long breath, tongue brushing her teeth, a knot rising in her throat, half sob, half scream. Then Sophie lifts her workbook high, opening to the tangled page of fractions. "She helped me with this," she declares, voice strong enough to make the onlookers shrink back. A gust whips through, flipping more pages. Another paperclip snaps loose, clattering at Mr. Griggs's feet. Sunlight strikes his brow, sweat glistening. His gaze flicks to the bold red D+ stamped on Sophie's test. For a flicker, his face loosens, then tightens again, torn between duty and something he can't name. "Leave now, before I call Principal Kent." His voice drops sharp, cold as a blade. The radio on his shoulder crackles, impatient. Arya rises shakily, slipping in the wet grass, mud splattering her worn dress. Sophie grabs her arm, eyes pleading yet defiant, locked on Mr. Griggs. The hum of the classroom air unit fades, leaving only hollow silence. Arya swallows hard, throat raw. A red oak leaf drifts down, landing in Sophie's hand, sticking to the grease from her lunch. The three of them stand frozen, time suspended. Then Sophie's digital watch buzzes, 12:35 flashing loudly in the quiet yard. The sound cuts sharply, exposing their secret meeting. Mr. Griggs's eyes snap toward Sophie, suspicion rising like smoke. An engine roars. A sleek black SUV swings into the lot, tires crunching gravel. Sunlight flashes off the windshield, blinding Arya until she blinks fast. Sophie lets go of her arm, lips moving with words she can't form. The car door opens. Cold air spills out as a man steps down, stride steady and deliberate. His eyes sweep the yard, sharp as a blade just drawn. Mr. Griggs stiffens, fumbling with the radio still in his hand, the paperclip clenched tight. Sophie retreats half a step, heart stumbling in her chest. Arya clutches the torn paper, blue ink soaking deeper into her skin, like a mark she'll never erase. The man stops. His gaze locks on Arya, then shifts to Sophie, reading them both as if uncovering a story no one has dared to tell. The car door shuts with a sharp click, freezing the backyard as Alexander Rowan stops. His suit carries the incredulous scent of leather, mixed with air conditioning still clinging to the wind and the tang of grass pressed flat underfoot. His eyes cut sharp as blades, from the glinting paperclip on the bricks to the crumpled candy wrapper in Arya's hand, then resting on Sophie's pale face. "What's happening here?" His voice isn't loud, but it lands heavy as lead. Mr. Griggs stiffens, fumbling with his radio, the edge of his badge scraping his jacket, catching the sun. Sophie swallows hard, clutching her lunchbox until her knuckles turn white. Arya breathes in, dizzy from the acrid ink smell staining her fingers. A sparrow startles from the oak, a red leaf drifting down, settling on the torn page like a fragile pause in the tension. Mr. Griggs steps forward, voice forced into formality. "Mr. Rowan, we found a trespasser in the backyard. Rules forbid—" Sophie cuts him off, stepping in front of Arya, her voice shaking but firm. "I invited her. We were eating lunch and studying." Alexander tilts his head, his eyes settling on the grease-blotched sandwich wrapper in Sophie's hand. His chin dips slightly. Curtains stir in the classroom windows, faces peeking out, eyes narrowing. Arya shifts on the damp grass, mud soaking her frayed hem. Her sweaty hand slips, revealing numbers packed tight across the page. The neat fractions steadied her pulse, if only for a moment. Mr. Griggs's radio crackles, a woman's voice breaking through. "Backyard secure?" The principal's on her way. The smell of disinfectant drifts from the hall, stinging Arya's nose like a pinprick. Alexander steps closer, his shadow covering both girls. He doesn't snatch the page. He simply opens his hand. Arya hesitates, then lays the paper there, her fingers brushing his. A faint blue streak smudges his cuff, a tiny exclamation mark. He studies her longer than anyone ever has. "Your name?" "Arya." Her voice cracks, but it carries. "You've been helping my daughter?" He nods toward Sophie. She bobs her head quickly, her eyes lighting as though a lamp had been switched on. Mr. Griggs shifts his stance, gravel crunching under his heel. "She still doesn't have a badge." "It's a security matter." Alexander doesn't turn. "Where's your mother?" The air seems to stop. Arya bites her lip, her chest tightening as the damp smell of old rain clings to her hair. "Near the square," she whispers, eyes fixed low. The clock on the wall jumps to 12:39, 2 minutes off Sophie's buzzing phone. Alexander notices. He hands back the page, the torn edge scraping Arya's finger raw. "Stay here," he tells Sophie. Then to Griggs, "Get the nurse's office. Water and a warm cloth." Griggs stammers. "I should report to the principal." "Do it," Alexander nods, "and tell her I'm listening to my daughter." Those two words, "my daughter," land like stone. Griggs blinks, gaze falling to the scratch on his badge, then retreats inside. The side door slams, a gust brushing Arya's cheek. Sophie exhales, tapping her lunchbox 3 times, the old rhythm stringing them back together through the chaos. Alexander crouches level with Arya. His cologne, faint and clean, blends with the papery scent of the notebook in his pocket. "Your math's right," he says softly, tapping the rows of fractions. "But you're still standing outside." Arya hides her stained hand, eyes dropping to the glinting paperclip in the grass. "I don't want trouble," she whispers, breath skimming her teeth. "I only wanted to help my friend." The acrid tang of the sports court drifts by, footsteps from the gym pounding like distant drums. "When did you invite her?" Alexander asks Sophie. "Today at lunch," she answers, trembling. "I couldn't take another D." He watches her closely, his eyes reflecting fatigue but sharp clarity. His thumb slides over his phone, screen catching the oak leaves above, but he doesn't press call. Heavy heels echo from the hallway. Principal Marjorie Kent emerges, amber perfume trailing with the jangle of bracelets. "Mr. Rowan," she smiles with practiced ease, eyes sweeping the lunchbox, the mud on Arya's hem, the ink stain on his cuff. Our school has rules. Each word drops cold as stone. This girl isn't registered. No papers. Sophie steps forward, then halts, tapping 3 times on the lunchbox lid. Alexander gestures toward the glass, where equations reflect in faint blue. Principal Kent lifts her chin. Talent is one thing. Rules are another. Her words sting, bitter on the tongue. From the hall, a parent's voice calls, "Don't turn this place into a charity." The whispers sharpen, cutting like blades. Dust swirls as the wind shifts, chalk flecks landing on Arya's dry hands. Alexander looks up, brushing aside the noise. "I want to meet her mother." Today his voice strikes like a stake. Principal Kent falters, then softens. "Then by regulation, I'll take them myself," Alexander interrupts, his jaw tightening. He glances toward his car, dashboard clock glowing 12:37, 2 minutes off the hall bell, a slight but sharp discrepancy. "Do you want this?" he asks Arya. The question hangs heavy, touching her deepest fear, leaving her mother's shadowed corner to step into white light and relentless questions. Sophie squeezes her hand, leaving a faint grease mark like a fingerprint. "I'll go with you," she whispers, almost too soft to hear. Principal Kent arches a brow, tapping her pen, 1, 2, 3, an even rhythm. "I'll need a report, a visitor badge, someone accountable." Her eyes flick to the ink stain on Rowan's cuff, a slight curl at her mouth. Mr. Griggs clears his throat, thumb tracing the scratch on his badge. Alexander looks at Arya, his hand open, waiting. Wind lifts the hem of her dress, chilling her ankles. She gazes up at the oak, its leaves trembling, breaking sunlight into gold shards across the grass. The mingled scents of crushed grass, blue ink, and leather hang in the air. Arya breathes deep, lips parting, her answer caught at the edge of a shifting breath, like a door just opened, not yet pushed through. Wind hisses through the oak branches, carrying the sharp click of Principal Kent's bracelets as they tap against her notebook, slicing through the moment when Arya's lips almost form a word. Her practiced smile stretches tight, cutting, her eyes darting from the blue ink stain on Alexander's cuff to the mud-streaked shoes on Arya's feet. The backyard air presses down, chilled drafts from the hallway raising goosebumps on Arya's arms. "This girl isn't in our records." Kent's voice strikes like a gavel. Sophie gasps, fingers tapping 3 times on her lunchbox lid. The faint sound rings clear to Arya, a rescue signal. Arya doesn't speak, but her trembling hand rests on the box, joining Sophie's rhythm with a slight nod, thin but unbreakable, like a thread holding dignity in place. The classroom window rattles. A few students pound their desks, snickering. A graded test flutters through the crack, spinning until it lands at Kent's feet. She bends, lifts it. The red D glares up, forcing Sophie's head down, her ears flushed pink. Kent raises the page, her smile narrowing to a blade. "This is the result of your tutoring?" Silence falls. Even the hum of the air unit is cut off. Arya takes half a step forward, ready to snatch the page, but the smell of wet ink pulls back the memory of rainy nights under the bridge. Her stomach clenches. A red oak leaf drifts down, clinging to the page's edge, hiding half the mark. That small detail sparks like a fragile flame, giving Arya the space to breathe. Alexander extends his hand. His thumb brushes the leaf as he takes the test. He studies it, then turns to Sophie. "What did you write here?" I didn't finish," she stammers. Kent leans in to interrupt, but Alexander lifts his palm, his gaze freezing the yard. He folds the paper carefully, sliding it into his inner pocket, the crease sharp. Arya holds her breath, watching every move like a verdict waiting to fall. Mr. Griggs clears his throat, thumb grazing the scratch on his badge. The radio on his shoulder hisses. The nurse's office reports water and towels ready. Arya clenches her hem, the loose thread scratching her leg raw. She breathes deep, locking eyes with Kent, lips curling not into a smile, but a silent defiance. Kent stiffens, eyes narrowing, then swings to Alexander. "If you want to turn this school into an experiment, you'll answer to the parents." Her heels strike brick, each step a drumbeat of accusation. Amber perfume lingers in the air, stinging Arya's head, but she stands straight, back against the oak. Sophie edges closer, whispering, "We won't let them drive you out." The words pierce the tension like a pin, making Arya's eyes sting. She presses her lips tight, fingers rubbing the dried ink on her skin, a stain that won't fade. The classroom clock ticks to 12:45, 4 minutes off Alexander's phone. He blinks, noting the strange rhythm. His shoulders sag, then square. He pulls a notebook free, his fountain pen slipping, striking the brick with a sharp crack. Both Kent and Griggs glance down. Arya bends, picks it up. Her fingers brush a crack along the pen's barrel, icy to the touch. When she hands it back, Alexander's eyes linger on her ink-stained hand, a look deep enough to unsteady her heartbeat. Sophie grips her lunchbox tighter, tapping 3 times, the signal that time is slipping. Wind whirls chalk dust into spirals, settling soft on Arya's hair like pale snow. The cool touch reminds her she's still here, still seen. Kent straightens her jacket, her voice deliberately slow. "I need a clear answer. Either she leaves or—" The unfinished words hang sharp, like scissors suspended midair. Alexander narrows his eyes, clutching the unopened notebook. Wind flips his jacket hem, carrying the scent of new paper mixed with leather. Arya lifts her gaze, meeting his eyes. Her lips part, breath trembling past her teeth but not yet words. Beside her, Sophie grips her hand, her eyes pleading and afraid all at once. From the hall, heavy footsteps pound closer, urgent as war drums. The decision can't wait. Alexander dips his head, ready to speak, while Arya draws a deep breath, chest rising high. Her words press at the edge of her tongue, like a tiny flame waiting for wind to break it wide open. Footsteps pound the brick hallway like urgent drums, pulling Arya out of her silence. The door bursts open, cold fluorescent light spilling out, mixing with Kent's heavy amber perfume, thickening the air in the backyard. She stands framed in the doorway, notebook in hand, pen poised, her voice clipped. "It's time for a decision." The words drop like stone. Arya shivers, her back pressed against the oak, rough bark scraping through thin fabric. Sophie tugs her hand gently, tapping 3 times on the lunchbox lid, the signal of rescue. Alexander blinks, pulls the folded sheet from his pocket, and sets it on a makeshift wooden bench. The crease cuts across the fractions in red ink. Silence tightens, broken only by the irregular hum of the air unit. Kent advances, heels striking hard, her smile rigid as a chalk line. "We can't ignore the rules." She raises her silver pen, light glinting off a scratch along its barrel. She lowers it toward the paper. Alexander blocks her hand, firm but quiet. His eyes lock on Arya. "Are you ready to stand by your words?" The question presses down, molten weight in her chest. Sweat slides along her temple, salt mixing with the damp grass around the oak. Arya swallows, throat raw, her eyes flicking to the paper clip shining at her feet. Sophie grips her tighter, tilting her head in silent encouragement. Whispers ripple from the classroom, faces pressed to the glass. A parent raises a phone, screen light flashing. Arya feels trapped, her dress clinging to her legs. Kent's voice cuts sharply as her pen touches the page. "Admit it, or—" Alexander interrupts, his tone low thunder. "No one is judged before being heard." He uncaps his fountain pen, its tip gleaming, but instead of writing, he lays it flat across the paper. Arya's breathing comes fast, her ears ringing, yet she still catches the tick of his phone's clock, out of step with the wall bell. The tiny error beats like a rhythm, reminding her of a gap she could step through. Kent doesn't back away. She folds her arms, voice rising. "An unregistered student drags this school's name through the mud." Laughter and whispers swell inside, waves slapping the shore. Arya trembles, then suddenly lifts her head. Her eyes shine. She raises her ink-stained hand, small but steady. "I don't need money." Her voice is strained but clear. "I just want help for my mother." Wind whirls red oak leaves. One lands square on Alexander's pen, sticking fast. He freezes, gaze shifting from the leaf to Arya's hand. Sophie bursts into tears, a soft sob that stills the crowd for a heartbeat. The air tightens like a drawn string. Mr. Griggs grips his badge, the silver scratch flashing, his eyes darting toward Alexander for orders. Kent steps closer, Pen raised high, her tone pounding. Choose now. Stay or go. Arya's chest squeezes, each breath heavy. Light from the SUV's windshield glares against her face, white and burning. A flash of her mother surfaces, labored breaths under the bridge. Fear swallows her, but in that blinding glare she sees the leaf trembling on the pen tip, a hidden signal. Her heart kicks. She knows this moment can't be turned aside. Alexander gives a slight nod, hand open, waiting. Kent tightens her grip on the pen. Sophie clutches Arya's hand. The crowd holds its breath. Wind lifts chalk dust from the doorway, sprinkling her hair like silver ash. Arya inhales, chest rising, throat tight. Her heartbeat drowns every sound. She lifts her face, locking eyes first with Kent's steel gaze, then Alexander's patient one. Her lips part. The words push forward, not yet spoken, hanging like a flame waiting for the wind. The air unit screeches, blending with the crowd's quick breaths behind the glass. Arya lifts her head, lips ready. The backyard of Bayview Preparatory School is strung tight as a wire. Principal Marjorie Kent's sharp amber perfume lingers. Arya speaks, her voice clear, steady. I can prove it. Every eye turns to her. Alexander Rowan raises a brow. Marjorie frowns. Sophie Rowan clutches her hand, trembling. Arya bends, picks a chalk fragment from her pocket. Small but enough. She kneels on the stained bricks, sketching fractions in quick strokes, white lines biting across the black ground. The chalk squeals with each mark. This is how I showed Sophie. She breaks Sophie's crushed sandwich into even pieces, laying them over the drawing, turning the problem into something alive. Butter's rich smell mixes with trampled grass, a jumbled scent in the air. Voices rise. Parents who've just arrived stop, eyes fixed. Marjorie lets out a sharp laugh. A clever act. But a phone lifts, recording everything. Sophie snatches her notebook, flipping to the page branded with a red D. She taught me to solve it, right here. The paper shakes in her hands, but her voice rings like a bell. Alexander pulls the folded sheet from his pocket and opens it wide. The profound crease slants across numbers. Correct, but unfinished. He holds it high, light shining through, drawing every eye. Marjorie falters, fear flashing in her gaze. Who wrote this? Her voice stumbles. Alexander answers evenly. Not my daughter. Color floods Marjorie's face. Her silver pen slips, clattering on the bricks, metal scraping the air. Mr. Griggs stoops to grab it, his thumb brushing the scratch badge, silver glinting. Alexander holds her stare, silent. The crowd whispers. If the girl outside the fence wrote it, why's the D still there? A parent covers her mouth, eyes wide. It's only a theory, Marjorie mutters, fumbling. Arya rises, her dress streaked with mud, head lifted high. I don't want grades. I just want my mother treated. Her voice cracks, but cuts sharply. Sophie sobs, hugging her tight, whispering, They have to believe you. Silence spreads. The schoolyard holds its breath. Alexander turns to Marjorie. You wanted transparency. Here it is. He sets the chalk stub on the wooden bench beside the scratched silver pen. The parents break out, voices crashing like surf. Marjorie stands frozen, pale, fumbling for her notebook, but her pen is gone. Her perfume thickens, unable to mask her unease. Arya's heart pounds, heat rising from truth laid bare. We saw it with our own eyes, one parent declares. Others echo, stronger this time. Marjorie's eyes dart, searching for escape, but Alexander's gaze pins her. Sophie taps 3 times on her lunchbox, the ink stain on her finger catching the light. Children inside pound their desks, chanting softly, a drumbeat of support. Marjorie stumbles half a step, tripping over a shattered chalk piece. Her face twists, authority slipping away under dozens of eyes. Arya steps back, leaning against the oak, staring up through its leaves. Her mother's image beneath the bridge flashes in her heart, steadying her for this moment. Alexander picks up the folded paper, his eyes pausing on the deep crease. He hands it to Arya, his warm hand brushing her ink-stained fingers. The crowd falls silent. Marjorie rasps, If you break the rules, you'll face the consequences. The words fall weak. Alexander doesn't answer. His eyes stay locked on Arya. Wind gusts, chalk dust rising white, settling soft on his shoulder. Sophie clings to Arya, trembling but proud. Arya breathes deep, the dry ink, the crushed grass, the chalk dust mixing in her throat. She grips the paper tight, her eyes fixed on Alexander. Her lips part, ready to release the words the whole yard is waiting for. The sound hangs suspended, like a flame waiting for wind to catch. Applause swells, drowning the thundering beat of Arya's heart as she stands in the yard. Lips trembling but ready. The air vibrates, white light spilling from the hallway, mixing with the sharp amber scent of Principal Kent's perfume. Then a low male voice rises from the crowd of parents at the door. "I've filmed everything. This girl isn't making it up." Agreement ripples fast, waves breaking one after another. Phones lift high, their glowing screens flashing against Kent's face. She stiffens, reaching for her fallen pen, but only clutches a red oak leaf stuck to its tip. Her eyes falter, authority cracking under the lenses and stares. Arya stays firm, the folded page trembling in her hands but no longer from fear. Alexander gives a single nod, his gaze stern yet warm, confirming without judgment. The air shifts from taut to bursting, scattered claps building into thunder. Kent stumbles back, shoulder hitting the frame, her notebook falling open to harsh notes. A parent picks it up, frowning at the words. She snatches it back, but it's too late for the rising murmurs. "Enough!" a mother calls, her voice breaking. The amber scent around Kent now makes noses wrinkle. Arya feels Sophie's grip tighten, the 3 taps on her lunchbox now ringing like a quiet cheer. Alexander straightens, his shadow shielding them from the sun, then steps aside, giving Arya the space to move forward. She no longer hides. Her heartbeat merges with the clapping rhythm, each wave pushing her into the light. Arya lifts her chin, breathing deep, the chalk dust, the butter from the crushed sandwich, the bruised grass blending into a single taste. "I just want to learn, and I want my mother treated." Her voice is steady. A hush falls, then support surges back from every side. Faces once doubtful lower, a few eyes glisten. Sophie presses her cheek against Arya's shoulder, shaking but proud. Alexander lays a firm hand on both their shoulders, a gesture like setting a cornerstone. Kent opens her mouth. "Rules!" The applause crashes over her words. Sunlight angles through the window, striking the folded page in Arya's grip. The crease glows white, ripping through the shadow. Alexander takes it, spreads it flat, his eyes on the dried, unfinished ink. He lifts it high for all to see, then folds it again, tucking it into his jacket like living evidence. The crowd roars. Children's footsteps echo down the hall, mixing with parents shouting, "Let her study!" Kent's hands shake as she grips another pen, but the nib is bent from her fall. Ink seeps across her skirt, a stain that won't wash out. She scrubs, but the blotch spreads. The smell of ink mixes with amber, exposing her loss of control. Alexander rests a hand on Mr. Griggs's shoulder, signaling him back. The guard swallows, eyes catching the scratch on his badge, and bows his head. Applause rolls into one rhythm, students pounding desks inside, drumming like victory music. Arya stands at the center, her eyes shining, chalk dust settling on her hair like a thin crown. Sophie leans close, tapping 3 cheerful beats on the lunchbox, now only crumbs. A parent hands Arya a damp cloth, its clean soap scent softening the air, overtaking the bitter amber. A breeze turns the oak leaves overhead. One spins down, landing on Arya's shoulder. She holds it, feeling the cool dampness against her skin. A new sign. Alexander watches her, his gaze softer, then turns to Sophie with a quiet nod. The crowd hushes, breaths held. Kent sniffs, turning to leave, but the door bursts wide. The white hallway light blocks her path. Arya grips the oak leaf, blue ink smudging onto its thin surface. She looks to Alexander, eyes wide, lips parting, ready to speak words that could turn everything. Then a strange sound cuts through the hall. Not footsteps. The sharp tear of paper, close and deliberate. The entire yard turns to look. Applause thunders, drowning the wild beat of Arya's heart as she stands in the center of Bayview Preparatory School's yard, lips trembling. The air vibrates, Principal Marjorie Kent's sharp amber perfume fading into the background. A man's deep voice rises from the parents at the doorway. I filmed everything. This girl isn't making it up. Agreement spreads like fire. Phones rise, screens flashing across Marjorie's face. She stiffens, reaching for her fallen pen, but only grasps a red oak leaf clinging to its tip. Her eyes falter, authority shattering beneath the lenses fixed on her. Arya stays steady, the folded paper trembling in her hand, but no longer from fear. Alexander Rowan nods once, his gaze firm yet warm. Scattered claps linked together, building into a rolling rhythm. Marjorie backs into the doorframe, her notebook slipping, harsh notes exposed. A parent picks it up, frowning at the words. She snatches it back, but not before whispers surge like waves. Enough! A mother cries, her voice breaking. The amber scent clinging to Marjorie now only stirs discomfort. Arya feels Sophie Rowan's hand gripping hers tight, the three familiar taps drumming against her skin. Alexander straightens, his shadow shielding them from the sun, then steps aside, leaving space for Arya to move forward. The applause thickens, each burst pushing her into the light. Arya lifts her chin, draws a deep breath, the chalk dust from her diagram mingling with crushed grass. I only want to learn, and I want my mother treated. Her voice is even, unwavering. Silence falls, then cheers rise again. Faces once doubtful lower, some eyes wet with tears. Sophie presses her cheek to Arya's shoulder, trembling but proud. Alexander lays a firm hand on both their shoulders, the gesture solid as a marker. Marjorie opens her mouth. Rules! But her words are swept away in the tide of clapping. Sunlight slices through the window, striking the folded page in Arya's grip. The crease gleams white. Alexander takes it, spreads it open, his eyes pausing on the unfinished dried ink. He lifts it high for all to see, then folds it back and tucks it into his jacket. The crowd erupts, children's sandals slapping the hall, parents' voices rising. Let her study! Marjorie's hands shake as she clutches a pen, but the nib is broken. Ink seeps across her skirt, a stain spreading darker the more she scrubs. The sharp smell of ink mixes with the air, laying bare her unraveling control. Alexander rests a hand on Mr. Griggs's shoulder, signaling him back. The guard swallows, eyes falling on the scratch of silver across his badge, then bows his head. Applause turns to a single beat, students pounding desks inside, echoing like victory drums. Arya stands at the center, her eyes shining. Chalk dust drifts onto her hair, settling like a pale crown. Sophie leans close, tapping 3 joyful beats on her lunchbox, now only crumbs. A parent hands Arya a damp cloth, its clean soap scent softening the air, pushing aside the bitter amber. A breeze swirls oak leaves overhead. One drifts down onto Arya's shoulder. She holds it, feeling the cool dampness press her skin. Alexander watches, his gaze gentler now, then turns to Sophie with a slight nod. The crowd quiets, breath suspended. Marjorie turns to leave, but the door bursts wide, white hallway light blocking her way. Arya clenches the oak leaf, blue ink smudging across its thin surface. She looks to Alexander, eyes wide, lips parting, ready to speak words that could change everything. Then a sharp rip of paper tears through the hall, startling the yard into silence. Every head turns. Evening light spills across the rooftop, where young maple pots tremble in the breeze, their red leaves casting shadows over Arya and Sophie's hair. The 2 girls stand side by side, hands clasped tight, their faces glowing in the last gold of the day. No more noise, no whispers, only soft wind and steady heartbeats, reminding everyone that justice had found its place. Alexander steps back, his eyes softened, watching them as though seeing a wide-open future. Chalk dust lingers on his shoulders, sparkling like stardust, proof of a moment that changed everything. The scene settles, leaving an echo hard to forget. From the shadows of doubt, a light of trust rose, warming not just one family, but an entire community. In Arya's hand, a maple leaf stained with ink remains pressed close, a symbol of dignity that will never fade. Great truths often begin with the smallest acts. If you felt the power of honesty and compassion in this story, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to join us for more journeys ahead. Do you believe kindness can change destiny?